Almost ready, but did it say that's a fly. Yeah. Just wait till Ethan comes up here.
Yeah, for Coke. We're live.
Okay. This is Mark. Well, David Bailey, thanks for joining us here at the Central Toronto Bitcoin Meetup. Your magazine, Why Bitcoin, is displayed quite prominently around the space here. It's at the front door when people are coming in to use the ATM. We have stacks of them here for the meetups. We're now on what's this, fourth issue?
Fourth issue.
This is the fourth issue. And it's getting bigger and bigger every time. And David and I have known each other for quite some time. I advertise in Bitcoin magazine. Sorry, in Why Bitcoin magazine. You can see we've got Rush Wallet on the inside cover. And it's a quality publication. And a lot of times people in the space are involved in projects. Because Bitcoin is so new, people are they're getting involved in, say, ATM projects, which they don't have much experience with. What David brought with his family is knowledge of the publishing business, and then got into Bitcoin afterwards and be able to translate those skills into the publication, which you see in front of you here. So, David, thanks for joining us. We're going to start off with your, for the first time people that we have on, your background, how you got involved in Bitcoin, and an introduction to Why Bitcoin magazine.
All right, and I guess to start, thank you for having me. I've been to Decentral a couple of times. It feels like a crypto nerd's home, and I've had a blast every time I've been there. And I hope I will try to keep this interesting and concise so that I don't bore you all to death. Basically, my background is in finance. I was going the investment banking route. Since I was just a kid, I've been a huge finance nerd. And about the third or fourth quarter of 2012, I bought some Bitcoins to kind of play around with. It came from a text from an old banking buddy of mine who was referencing some story about the Silk Road, and I just couldn't really figure out like what this money was. So I just wanted to test it out for myself. So I bought some Bitcoins, played around with it, started doing more research and more due diligence. And Bitcoin's one of those things that, as you learn more about it, you get more sucked in. So, I started off very skeptical, and then, almost like someone learning how an engine works. The more you learn how it works, the more you become impressed by the whole system. And so I started significantly investing in late 2012, early 2013, and got to experience the boom and bust, I guess, the first one of 2013, where the price went from about $10 to $266. I guess a lot of you probably remember the November bubble, and a lot of sleepless nights when the price was crazy. I mean, how can you go to sleep when the price is going up like 50% every day or 25% every day? But anyway, so after the bubble kind of popped, I was, but stabilized. That's the key thing. The bubble popped, but it stabilized. It found a bottom. I really felt that there was something lasting here, and I wanted to get involved. So I went out to the San Jose conference in 2013 to try to find a Bitcoin job. And as I was doing that, I kept hearing over and over again as I ran into people the same questions, like, oh, what are you doing in California? I'm here for Bitcoin conference. Oh, what's Bitcoin? It's digital currency on the internet. Oh, how does it work? Is it safe? And every single person I talked to, had the exact same questions over and over and over again. I mean, almost to the point where you didn't even want to tell people you were involved in Bitcoin because you didn't want to answer the question again. And when I was trying to kind of figure out, what my role in all of this was, I realized, what would be really useful is a publication where if someone asked me these questions, instead of having to spend an hour explaining it to them, I could just hand them a magazine and it would explain everything they need to know. And then if someone asked them a question, instead of repeating something incorrectly, they can just like pass the magazine and those questions can be answered. So I went and partnered with my sweet mother, who's around here somewhere, Callie Bailey, who has 30 years experience in the publishing business. So I grew up around, publishers, and It's not my passion, but it's something I know and understand. And we just decided to go 50-50 and get this business going. So we started the first magazine. We didn't know if it was really going to work or not, but we thought, what the hell, we'll give it a shot. And it worked very well. We had an overwhelming response. Thousands of people around the country asking for stacks of magazines to hand out locally, to hand out at Bitcoin meetups, merchants, advertisers wanting boxes of magazines to hand out to clients or potential investors, investment banks, venture capitalist offices, needing material to hand out that's credible and presentable and it gives a strong brand and image to Bitcoin. So after the first issue, which we would have lost a bunch of money on, but thankfully the price of Bitcoin went way up, and we accept Bitcoin for all of our advertisement. We knew that there was a business here, and so we really started investing into building out, the infrastructure around it and the team necessary to, take it to the next level, which is what we're always. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but we always tell ourselves, all right, it's time to take it to the next level, So from the first issue to the second issue, there was a pretty drastic improvement. There was more advertisers. We printed more magazines. From the third issue to the fourth issue, or the second to the third, the same thing happened. And then, as Anthony mentioned, from the third to the fourth, the same thing happened. And we grew the advertising support for the magazine about 400% in the first year. And it grew from, I believe the first issue was 52 pages, and this last issue came in at 100 pages. So, we're very pleased with, how things have gone. If you have seen every copy of the magazine, you will quickly realize that a lot of the content in the magazine is redundant. It's the same content over and over again. Like the first article by Eric Voorhees is "What is Bitcoin?" And we try to structure the magazine so that we answer the questions as they would come to you naturally. Like, what is Bitcoin? Why does it have value? Those are the first two articles. But we keep republishing the same articles because the magazine never goes to the same person twice. So the idea is to really give the Bitcoin community a tool to help evangelize and explain Bitcoin. And the whole purpose of the magazine is educational for people who don't know about Bitcoin. So we didn't really want to create something where we had subscribers and we're sending new content to the same subscribers every time. So I guess what I need to do is back up just a little bit and explain the model of how the business works and really kind of what differentiates us as a magazine compared to, say, a normal magazine like Wired. The magazine is completely free. The method that we use to kind of make it happen is we print as many magazines as we possibly can so that we can get our cost very low per unit. And then we have bulk distributors around the world, but primarily in North America, that we literally fill, semi-trucks of magazines up to and send to those individuals so that they can distribute it in a geographical region and bring our distribution cost way lower. So, for example, we'll print 40,000 magazines of an issue, which is about, to put that in perspective, about 10 times more magazines than Bitcoin Magazine prints, which has a pretty well-known brand in the Bitcoin community. We'll take, say, 3,000 or 4,000 of those magazines, load them onto an 18-wheeler, ship them up to Chicago or the Hamptons or New York or San Francisco or Austin, Texas, and we'll have a list of different locations that we want to have the magazine distributed to. So we'll be like, all right, our San Francisco guy, we want this at tech incubators, we want this at startups, we want this at yacht clubs, we want this at Lamborghini dealerships, we want this at country clubs, and we want this at banks. And that distributor then will hit all those locations and leave 5 to 10 magazines at a location. And then we also get the magazines to conferences where there are a lot of people that would be predisposed to Bitcoin but don't necessarily know what Bitcoin is or how they can get involved. So a great example of this was a couple of weeks ago, I guess a month ago, we did a seat drop at Money 2020, which is the biggest fintech payments conference in the world. And we put a copy on every single chair. So, the CEO of American Express and the CEO of Visa and the C-level executives at all these major finance companies had to move the magazine out of their way so they could sit down. And that's a pretty strong push that we're making to try to force, Bitcoin and educational material about why Bitcoin matters, in front of the people who can really do something with the information, executives that run companies and make decisions for their business. So that's kind of the methodology that we use to get the magazine out there. And it's, it is a very cost-effective model. So that's kind of why we've hit a sweet spot. And as we've grown the business, we've tried to look for models that are pretty similar to what we're doing to replicate. And the closest publication we can find out there that matches this model is actually pretty funny, is the Mormon magazine. It's the #1 most distributed publication in the world. They print 40 million magazines a month. And to put that into perspective, Wired magazine prints 800,000 magazines a month. So the Mormon publication is 50 times bigger than Wired. And they print the magazines, they distribute them for free, they hand them to people to kind of spread the word about the Mormon religion. Well, so there's a lot of parallels, I guess, with the Bitcoin world with evangelizing a technology. So,
have you ever, Dave,
go on.
have you ever thought about selling it to newsstands as well? I know giving away free for new people, but have you thought about the model of perhaps charging for some of them, or perhaps distributing them somewhere where you are charging?
There are people out there selling Why Bitcoin magazines. We've heard reports of multiple stores that are selling them, that they get them for free from us, and then they put a price tag on them and sell them. So I'm guessing the model would work, but we thought our initial thought process was that if we're trying to get this into the hands of people who don't know about Bitcoin, it's going to be really hard to convince them to spend money on something they don't know what it is. So, we kind of consider this a form of guerrilla push marketing. We take the magazines, we put them on a coffee table at a Lamborghini dealership. Someone's waiting to buy their brand new Lamborghini, they're bored, they look over, they see Bitcoin on the publication, they're like, I've heard of that. They open it up, and we try to suck them in as soon as they open up the magazine. So, if someone wanted to sell or wanted to buy magazines from us, and we would definitely take their money. But it's not really the business model that we've fleshed out for Why Bitcoin. Though we do think that there's an opportunity and a market out there for a quality publication that does have subscribers, does follow the normal model, and is paid for per issue. But finding the right content to put in that is really the key there.
How big could this magazine get in terms of page length?
So, in terms of page length, we really want to kind of cap out the number of pages at about 120 or 140 pages, because once it gets bigger than that, it gets unwieldy and people don't really, read through the whole publication. In terms of how big could the magazine get in terms of print count, we plan on scaling up how many magazines we're printing every single quarter, which we print every quarter. We have the capability of moving 2 million magazines a month if we could afford to print 2 million. So, in terms of scaling the business, there's a lot of room for growth. And part of the vision that we're building is we want to onboard advertisers that are not Bitcoin advertisers. We want Dell Computer advertising, saying look, we accept this awesome technology, and marketing themselves to kind of the readership of the publication. And as we gain advertisers that have what I would say unlimited advertising budgets, where they look at a per reader cost, not a total cost, we can start raising our rates in the magazine to competitive rates for other publications. For example, a page in Wired magazine costs $150,000. So if we were able to sell advertisements at $50,000 a page or something, it wouldn't take very many Dells or Tiger Directs or ESPNs in order to enable us to print 1 million magazines a month or 2 million magazines a month. Which once we start printing that many, we're really talking about pushing Bitcoin in front of a lot of people.
Now, there's been some news about some things I know you don't want to get into right yet because things haven't been finalized. However, what are your growth plans? What other industries do you want to get into, or what type of maybe supplementary areas do you want to get involved with Why Bitcoin?
So, I guess part of the transformation we've gone from is that we have this print product that's working and doing really well. We have thousands and thousands of people, tens of thousands of people around the country that get our magazine to distribute it. We have, an estimated somewhere around 800,000 people have read our magazine, maybe a little bit less than that. And so, the print publication is doing well, but what we see as really valuable for our business is that now we have business relationships with about 300 different Bitcoin companies and startups, and some companies that just accept Bitcoin, and we actually do business with about 100 of them. So we have a very large network of companies that we're working with, and we keep hearing consistently from them that they're looking for more outlets to plug their branding, their messaging, and reach the audiences. So we want to kind of expand our product offering, and in doing so, we set up a company called BTC Media, and BTC Media is now the parent company of Why Bitcoin, and Anthony mentioned it very briefly, but in the coming days, we'll have a very major, significant announcement that will be a new product in the BTC Media family that I would imagine most of you already know. And that is going to kind of, I guess, pave the way for us to continue to bring media products into the fold and plug our companies on the back end into those businesses. So if you look at the Bitcoin space right now and you look for like Bitcoin news, let's say, it's very fragmented. There's a lot of different companies providing Bitcoin news, and a lot of them are covering the exact same stories in a pretty similar fashion. But the key similarity between all of them is that none of them are making money because they're all lean operations and none of them have sales teams. So we kind of see ourselves in this unique position to provide kind of the back office facilities that enable you to monetize a product. Like, you can run a blog full time, but if you don't have someone selling ads on that blog, you're doing a lot of work and you're not receiving any benefit. So we'd like to see us, be able to bring our advertisers to the table, partner with a lot of cool products that are out there, and help fund, some of the people that are working really hard to provide great content, video-wise, or editorial-wise, or podcasts, etc. So this is kind of a part of the Bitcoin scene that's just now starting to develop and gain some real structure to it. And part of like an exciting thing that we're going to be doing that I can share is we are going to be opening new offices for BTC Media in other continents. So we think that the Chinese Bitcoin market is really exploding right now in a lot of ways, and there's almost no coverage of what's happening in China in the States. There are dedicated Chinese new Bitcoin news sites that are running stories, lots and lots of stories a day, that almost no one in your room has read, but they're quality stories. And vice versa. There's stories that are being published on CoinDesk and Bitcoin Magazine, etc., in the States that are not being translated into Chinese. So we want to kind of bridge the information gap that is existing in these different geographical regions, and really be able to provide an outlet that stretches beyond just one region of the world.
Talk about the Bitcoin bull. So you've got that on the front cover of this issue. Talk about. I know that you guys have a box here. Talk about what your, is there a partnership or something you have in there, or is it just that you guys are involved by going to the event?
Yeah. So actually, I think my girlfriend is listening in right now, and she is actively involved in planning the Bitcoin bull. She works at BitPay, and we are a partner of the bull game, and it really fit well within kind of our mission of pushing Bitcoin in front of new people. And
One second. For those that don't know, there's a BitPay is sponsoring it for the next 3 years.
For the next 3 years, correct.
3 years, they've got the St. Petersburg Bowl. So there will be an official now Bitcoin Bowl for the next 3 years. It's a college game down in St. Petersburg. And maybe talk a little bit about the ESPN connection to that and how much publicity that's going to be getting due.
Yeah, so it's the day after Christmas. It's on ESPN. I'm guessing most of you are Canadian, but if you are from the States, you know how seriously we take our American football. And when it comes to the holiday season, it's basically what 50% of households are watching. So the Bitcoin Bowl is the day after Christmas, I think at 7 o'clock in the evening. It's the only bowl game on, and it's on ESPN, the main ESPN channel. So there's going to be millions and millions of households watching. I've heard as many as 5 million households watching. And BitPay has really just done a fabulous job putting together the event. And I mean, it's going to be a whole kind of Bitcoin bonanza. I mean, they have commercials that are going to be running on ESPN that are Bitcoin commercials for BitPay and for, I don't want to go through and like list out all their advertisers because I don't know that they've publicly announced that, but it will be the first time ever that Bitcoin companies are advertising live on TV. So it's pretty exciting. They're going to have Bitcoin ATMs. They're going to have a bunch of merchants signed up to accept Bitcoin. And so this is going to be like an opportunity for, tens of thousands of fans going to the game and millions of people watching from home to like see Bitcoin in this really like legitimate way where it's not being associated with the Silk Road, it's not being associated with something sketchy, it's being associated with a sport that they love and a brand that they know.
Can you, I'm not sure if you can talk about this, but were ticket sales and all the vending stuff, is that all going to be available in Bitcoin?
I don't know. I think the ticket sales are available in Bitcoin, but I don't want to say something and then have my girlfriend message me in like 10 minutes. Like, what the hell are you saying? That's not true. So I defer to saying what the answer to that is. I think you can go to the website bitcoinbowl.com and you can kind of get the details.
And I'm not sure, you were telling me a story before one time about the difficulty that they were having getting the venue. Was it you telling me that story?
I don't think so.
No, where they had to, where the bowl is being held, the Major League Baseball team said that they would not allow the bowl to happen at the stadium.
I don't know. I'm not familiar with the story.
Yeah, so it was basically because there was some involvement in Bitcoin. It was going to be all done through Bitcoin. Whoever has the right or has the baseball team, they said the owner said no, we're not doing this here, and they had to scramble looking for another location for it. And it ended up being the other sports team who has a little higher authority said no, screw that. We're definitely going to be having this bowl game there. They basically were supporting Bitcoin and basically told the Major League guys to go screw off. So they're Bitcoin fans there. So I can open up the questions to people here. If anybody has any questions for David. Yes, Jeff.
All right. So one of the big things with magazine and media, whatever, is your advertisers. And I think one of the challenges for a lot of people around advertisers is there's a lot of sketchy companies, pyramid schemes, various scams, whatever, in the Bitcoin space. What's the challenge to watch for those as a content producer, and what is your idea of vetting advertisers and that sort of idea?
All right, so you just hit the nail on the head with one of the hardest parts of this job. Especially in our business, because we're in print, which means whatever you put in print lasts, and because we're education focused for newbies, we have to be very diligent, or as diligent as we can be, about not putting out, scams, etc. And, as much as we've tried, we've been burned by this multiple times. The second issue of Why Bitcoin, I'm not joking, was the cover was NeoNB. And NeoNB was on the cover, and 2 weeks later, NeoNB was bankrupt. And, I mean, we were so angry, like before the magazines were even really rolling off the press, or as they were rolling off the press, they declared bankruptcy. And we still have not lived that down. We get people to this day saying, I love the NeoNB cover, when are you bringing that back? So,
Butterfly Labs!
Yeah, did you ever have Butterfly Labs advertising?
Butterfly Labs, I can say, is one of the companies we did not have advertising with us, so I'm proud to say.
That sounds like someone talking who I screwed my Butterfly Labs.
Well, not to make you feel too bad, but I know you're a trader in your current.
I was just about to reference that, yeah. So, another company we've been burned on is BT Trader, and there's actually been one other company that I would add to the list of scams, really, that we have been able to get into the magazine. And we try our best to do the diligence on these companies, and like, for example, with BT Trader, I saw some red flags, and I was worried about them advertising, and I probably should have trusted my gut, but what I did is I picked up the phone and I called some other companies that I know that are in the media space, and I said, what is your opinion on these guys? Do you know who they are? Do you know what their customers are saying, etc.? And they checked out with people, so we thought, all right, we'll go with it, and that turned out to be a mistake. And I'm sure we're probably going to have that come up more, but every time we get burned, we get tighter and tighter. So this issue, we've actually pushed away several people that have come to us where there's no accusations of scams, but there's just like one company that was charging people a subscription fee to hold their bitcoins for them in cold storage. We have no way of determining like how that's going to work out, and the company doesn't have any track record. So we can't have them in just because the liability is too great for us. It's tricky. It's really, really hard. We've even had companies that have advertised with us where we've had a great relationship with them, and people that we've interacted with have had a great relationship with them. But a customer is upset, and they write us and say, you can't have this person advertising. They've done me wrong. Well, that puts us in a really difficult situation because we're not judges and arbiters of what is, what companies are following best practices and what aren't. If every company that had an upset customer we didn't let advertise, no one except CryptoKit would be advertising with us. So, it's a tricky position to be in. And I do know that there are companies out there that not only do they advertise, but when they do advertise, they push really hard to have their imprint on as much as possible. And that's something you really have to be careful of, and you have to segregate. And that gets even more tricky, when you're in the news side of the business, because sometimes you need to cover events that are happening, and at the same time, that company may be advertising with you and paying you money. And as much as everyone wants to be unbiased, it's a business decision at the end of the day of, we have employees that we need to pay, and, we have everything that's going on, and, it's really hard to turn someone down when there's no evidence of wrongdoing, when there are so many needs that to grow the business and to benefit the Bitcoin community. So it's tough. I mean, there's really not an easy answer to it, and we would be big advocates of some standards that were published within the community that kind of push companies to comply with, so that we knew that there was some, a sign of good health before we did business with someone. And I guess, this is a debate we were literally having last week, and we talked to one of our advisors, and his advice that he gave us was good advice, but it may not be the advice everyone wants to hear. But, we're not auditors. We don't have the ability to go in and say, show us your books, show us how your business is operating, we're going to come here and audit what you're doing. And even Bloomberg had Enron advertised on the front cover. So, there's a limit for, really what we're able to do, and it's a constant battle. I mean, that really is probably one of the hardest parts of this job.
David, thanks for joining us. I look forward to seeing you down in Florida.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. Thank you all for listening to me. I know publishing is not the most interesting topic, but I can tell you that the benefit of being in this spot is we get to go all over the world and hear different Bitcoin communities that are happening in Argentina and Brazil and Germany and Israel and Singapore, Hong Kong, Korea. And we've been probably to more conferences than anyone has in the world. And say that again?
Being put up every concert into.
We've been to at least 30 conferences this year, and I can tell you 100% positively that the Bitcoin revolution is happening in real time worldwide, all over the world. And it's super cool to see all these distributed people in different communities that have never met, all working towards a common goal. And it still to this day like gets my juices flowing, knowing that like just as you guys are sitting here meeting, there's 40 people meeting in Buenos Aires, and there's a group of people meeting, you know, in Beijing right now, and all of them are trying to figure out how do we take this currency and turn it into the future. So, you know, props to you guys for being here on a Wednesday night, and thank you for listening to me.
Thanks a lot, David. Thanks a lot, David. Hey guys.